Good morning. Today we are focused on foam roller release, okay, which is probably what you usually use your foam roller for. Again, it can be a short or long foam roller that you're using. For the last 3 weeks, we've worked really on mobilizing the hips and mobilizing your thoracic spine and the upper back. So today we're using the foam roller to release trigger points in the fascia. Okay, so you may think that when you're rolling onto the muscles, but really you're rolling onto the fascia. What the fascia is easiest way to describe it, if the muscle is like your sausage meat, the fascia is like the skin on the sausage. So if you have tension in the skin, it distorts the muscle underneath. Okay, so it adds tension to the muscle underneath. By releasing the tension in the fascia, you get to release the muscle as well. Okay, so what we do with the roller is we find where we have these trigger points, which is where the fascia has contracted and hasn't released. Okay, and by rolling onto those spots, which you all know the feel of, we get to add blood flow or encourage blood flow back into the area so the fascia can release and relax. We're going to work through the fascial, we all have fascial lines through the body. We've got a posterior line, an anterior line, and a lateral line. We're going to work through the posterior line to start with. Not all muscles can be targeted with the foam roller. Okay, some of them are just too deep, so you cannot get into where you need to be. And for those, I usually recommend stretching. Okay, so we'll do a little bit of that as we go along today. With the posterior line, it starts from the soles of the feet all the way up the back of the body, up to the crown of the head. Okay, to release the feet, again, the roller is not very satisfactory, but what is nice is if you get a tennis ball and stand on the tennis ball and roll up and down the arches. So if you know you have tightness in the feet and into the calves, that's a nice thing to do. Okay, but we're going to start with the roller across the mat and have the roller on the belly of the calf muscle, so the widest part of the calf muscle. Legs are out long, hands come back behind, they're facing your hips, and you're going to lift up and pull the pelvis back so the roller comes down towards that Achilles tendon and back up towards the back of the knee. Okay, so Achilles can often be a problem area. Again, often down to tension, too much tightness or shortness in the calf muscles or in the fascia through the feet. Okay, so the soles of the feet mostly. So up and down, try now turning out from your hips so you get into a slightly different area. And then turn in and keep going. Okay. If all this feels okay, what you can do, either now in your own time, is put one leg on top of the other. So there is work for the upper body. Okay, chest is open, shoulders are working, and then switch the legs over and keep going. So the weight of the top leg makes all the difference with these. Okay, so moving up through that fascial line, we come up towards the hamstrings. So hamstrings are one of those sets of muscles that they're just too deep to get to the fascia. So it's not very effective to roll them unless they're super tight. So come up, straighten the leg, knee is on your roller, other knee, and then you're going to tip over. One hand either side of the leg. The leg can be as straight as you can get it, okay? I'd like the foot on the floor. And then think about pulling your thigh bone into the back of the hip socket. So ideally with stretches, you want to be here for 30 seconds to a minute. Certainly no less than 30 seconds. And then you're going to slowly come up and switch legs. So kneeling, stepping forwards, lengthen the leg, tip over, keep the pelvis nice and level, keep pulling that thigh bone back. It's like you're vacuuming it back into the hip socket. Pressing down towards the mat. And take a few more deep breaths. So when you're doing these on your own, it'll take more time. Moving up now through that fascial line, we get to Gluteus Maximus. Those big glute muscles, they don't tend to get super tight. The muscles, the glutes that get tight are the ones on the side of the pelvis for most people, Minimus and Medius. So we'll get back to those when we're doing our lateral line. We're going to move up now into the muscles that support the lower back. We never roll onto the lumbar spine. If there are disc issues in your spine, they will most likely be in your neck or your lower back. So we never use the roller on that part of the body. So all you're going to do is put your feet on your roller. Allow a little space to form between your lower back and the mat. And then you're going to tilt into that space, using as little effort as possible, and then release back. So this is all release work. So there shouldn't be a huge amount of effort. So imprint and release, and then go side to side. See if you can do this without swinging the legs side to side. It's like I've come over and pushed down, trying to press your hip into the mat. And then add those two movements together, imprinting, coming over to the left hip, drop your tailbone, over to the right hip, and back to imprint. Okay, so again, trying not to move the legs. It's a really small movement. And then you're going to reverse those circles. So we all have a favorite direction. See if you can get full range. One more time. And then lift that feet up, hold on to the backs of the thighs, round forwards to curl up. And move the roller behind you so it comes to the tips of your shoulder blades. Okay, happily we can roll over all of that thoracic spine area in the upper back and all of the musculature that attach to that part of the spine. About 12 vertebrae, so down at the bottom of the shoulder blades is your lowest thoracic vertebra, your 12th one. Come back, interlacing the hands, lift the pelvis up nice and high, and then you're going to roll up to the tops of the shoulder blades and back down to the bottom of the rib cage, tips of the shoulder blades. Okay, so really important that the head is heavy in your hands. Take advantage of being able to open the hips. So keep pressing them up to the ceiling. With all this trigger point work, if there's a spot that you find that's particularly painful, you just stay on that spot and do little rolls over and back, about 10 or 12 of those. Just seeing if you can get that blood flow back in. So up and down, looking at the ceiling, then you're going to turn to look to the right and roll up and down the right side of the rib cage, right side or lateral side of your right shoulder blade, where there's a lot of muscular attachments. And you're going to see what you can find. If you feel like you need to come further overdue or not quite as far, it's different for everyone, but you'll know once you're on a trigger point. And lift the pelvis and do the same thing on the other side. So this is really nice, especially if you're sitting at a desk all day, just to open everything up. Again, if you find little spots, stay on those. And then come back to look at the ceiling. Place your pelvis down and lift yourself up. Okay, so we're not going up to the neck today. So that's as far as we go in that posterior chain of musculature. Neck, we don't use the roller, okay? So stretching is great, or manual release from the physio is good, but not with the roller. So let's work on anterior chain next. You can start with the shins, okay? Anyone who's had shin splints before will know that even though it feels pretty bony down the front of the shin, there are muscular attachments that can get tight. Then we're going to go up through the quads, into the deeper hip flexors, the psoas, and then out to stretch the chest. So kneel onto your roller, and you're going to pull your knees in and away. Okay, so your hands are under your shoulders and you're rolling from the ankles to just below your kneecaps. Okay, so it might feel absolutely fine, hopefully it does, but for some of you it might feel not so good. Okay. I am rushing this a bit today. It is part of a much longer workshop, so just as you're doing this, make sure that you figure out what you need to do, okay, in your own time, because there's a lot of these and you don't need to be doing all of them. We all use our bodies very differently and create tension in different areas as a result. So legs are long. We're going onto quads. Legs are straight and lifted. Belly button to your spine. You're going to roll up and down the front of the thighs. Okay, so go full range all the way up and all the way down to start with, and figure out where you're tight. Make sure you move the elbows, so again, a bit of shoulder work. And then stay on your tightest spot. It's usually the same in each leg. If you don't find anything, you can turn out from the hips, a bit like we did with the calves, and you can turn in from the hips. But as triathletes, it's really unlikely that you're not going to find anything. Okay, so these quads usually need a bit of attention. Come up from there. So your quads are hip flexors, but you also have a deeper hip flexor, which is called your iliopsoas. It attaches from the lumbar spine, comes through the pelvis to attach at the front of the hip. So it gets tight from too much hip flexion, too much sitting, too much time in the saddle, always tightens up those hip flexors. So a really nice way to release it, and I think we did this last week, was to put the roller under your pelvis. Again, it's a super deep muscle, so there's no way of using the roller to get to it for myofascial release, but the nice way to stretch it is to squeeze one leg in towards you, lengthen the other one up to the ceiling, and then lower that leg down. Hopefully you don't have a sleeping dog under you, so you can then get the leg all the way down, or as far down as it will go for you. You need to keep squeezing the leg you're holding onto. If you have any knee issues, just hold on to the back of the thigh instead of the shin. And the key to this is to let that long leg go as heavy as possible. What you can do is a little sweeping movement side to side to figure out the tightest spot, and then again just let the leg hang heavy. Okay, other side. So follow that straight leg in, lengthen the other leg up, reach through the toes and lower the leg. And keep encouraging the leg to drop. The longer you stay here, the more likely you are to get the foot lower. It might not come all the way down to the floor, but that's what you're aiming for. Okay, so now bend that straight knee, bring the foot onto the mat, bring the other leg down by your side, lift up and off, and then round forwards to curl up. Moving up through that anterior line, we have all of the abdominals, which we never think about stretching. Okay, so we just don't think they need it, but they work as well, and often there are trigger points in the abdominals. Again, you're not going to roll over them. Okay, so you're going to come back and hopefully feel a stretch. Your head is supported, your hands are interlaced, and then you're going to round forwards. Okay, and hopefully you feel a lovely stretch all the way up the front of the body. Let's do a couple more. Breathing in as you come back, breathing out as you round forwards. So not thinking about anything in particular, except for just making sure you feel that nice stretch. Last time, all the way back and come up. Okay, so that is as much of the anterior line as we are doing today. Last part of the series is the lateral line. Okay, so we've done calves, we've done shins. We're gonna move lateral line of the upper leg first, which I'm sure you all know as your ITB. Okay, so any kind of knee pain is often related to tension in the ITB. Iliotibial band is a band of connective tissue. It's not even classified as a muscle. It runs from the side of the hip to the side of the knee. Okay, the top foot comes over, hands come onto the mat, you straighten that bottom leg, the foot is off the mat or the floor, and you roll up and down that band. So if that feels okay, a bit like with the calves, you add the top leg in for a little bit of extra weight, and you do the same thing, and you keep smiling as you roll up and down. 2 more, just because it's not my favorite. And last one. And let's hope the other side is a little bit easier. Okay, so same spot, top of the hip, long leg, bring the top foot over to start with. You're on your hands, and you're gonna go to the top of the kneecap, and back to the top, or excuse me, to the side of the hip. And then bring that top leg on. So this is probably the most painful of all of these myofascial releases with the roller, but really, really important for healthy knees. One more. Okay, last one in the lateral, well, second last one in the lateral line. We're going to do those gluteus medius and minimus. So they sit at the side of the pelvis. You sit onto the roller with the knees bent, up nice and tall. Bring your hand behind you. So let's go right hand. Come over onto the right side of the pelvis. So your knees are pointing to the right. Bring the foot onto the knee and roll up and down. Now, if you are super tight through this area, you might want to leave the foot down. Okay. What you're looking for is that bony point at the top of the hip and that sit bone at the other end. Okay, so go through full range, and wherever you find tight spots is where you stay and do those little rolls. Okay, so really important to release work. Often, or not often, but sometimes your sciatic nerve passes through your piriformis, which is one of those muscles that you're releasing here. So it's really important to keep that muscle nice and loose. Other side, left hand behind, knees to the left. If you're lifting your leg, you always lift the leg on the side you're releasing. Two more. Okay, come down from here. We're going to get into the lats to finish. So these are your swimming muscles. Big muscles that fan down the side of the back, okay, and attach in underneath the shoulder. You're going to lie onto the side of the rib cage, knees bent. You're going to interlace your hands behind your head, close your elbows, and then open the elbow to the ceiling, roll back, before rolling all the way back to where you started. So really your focus is what's happening on the roller. Okay. We're just releasing into those attachment points of those lats. Again, if you find a tight spot, you might want to lift off it slightly, and you can do little rolls here. So it's getting back to where we were a few minutes ago. It's just a little bit more targeted. And then exactly the same thing to the other side. So close the elbows, knees bend, opening that top hip. Turning to look at the head, so there is mobility work here, which is really nice. And coming back. So make sure you feel every bit of the movement. And then when we've figured out where you need to be, come back, lift up, and do a little roll up and down. Okay, so that was a very quick run through of foam roller release, just the main ones of all those superficial muscles. We might do some more another time, but they're really the important ones. So enjoy. Bye bye.